All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We're stepping way back in time today to look at a classic folktale, The Wisdom of Zhang Chooses. And let me tell you, we are going to be solving some seriously impossible riddles together. So, right as the bat, I've got a challenge for you. Imagine your father-in-law sits you down and gives you a ridiculously strict set of instructions. He demands that you bring him a paper-wrapped fire and a footless chicken. I mean, what on earth would you even bring him? How do you literally wrap fire in paper without the whole thing just going up in flames? And what exactly is a footless chicken? Keep those questions in the back of your mind. I want you to play along today and see if you can solve these impossible riddles before the characters in our story actually do. Okay, let's dive into this. The source material introduces us to our main guy, Zhang Chooses, and he is renowned far and wide as an incredibly brilliant, sharp-witted patriarch. But here is the hilarious and honestly kind of tragic contrast. His family doesn't quite share his genetic gifts. He's got 3 sons who are described as, well, utterly dull and blockheaded. His 2 eldest sons are already married, and unfortunately, the 2 daughters-in-law they brought into the family, yeah, they are just as clueless. So Zhang Chooses is sitting at the head of the table, looking at this group, and he is just completely worried about the future. Here's the core issue. Zhang Chooses is getting older. He realizes he can't spend his entire life micromanaging his dim-witted family and basically running the entire household for them. If he passes away, the family's going to fall into total ruin because they simply do not know how to navigate life. He desperately needs someone smart to take over the reins. And this brings us to his ultimate goal. His youngest son, Munir, is unmarried, so Zhang Chooses decides he absolutely must find an incredibly clever daughter-in-law for Munir, someone sharp enough to manage the whole estate. But how do you even find someone like that? Well, Zhang Chooses comes up with a masterful, if slightly devious plan. He decides to test the waters by setting a completely impossible trap for his current daughters-in-law. One day, he tells them they can finally go visit their own parents. Naturally, they're thrilled. But then, he drops the conditions. He looks at the first daughter-in-law and says, "You may stay for 3 to 5 days." He tells the second daughter-in-law, "You may stay for 7 to 8 days. And then he delivers the kicker. He says, "But you absolutely must return on the exact same day." Wait, let's just pause right here. Look at the math for a second. How does this actually work? One woman is given a window of 3 to 5 days. The other is given 7 to 8 days. Yet they're commanded to travel back to the Zhang household together on the exact same day? If you were standing in their shoes, what date would you even circle on the calendar? It seems like a complete logical paradox, basically designed just to make their heads spin. But Zhang Chooses doesn't stop there. Oh no. He layers on a second, even more absurd demand. As they're literally walking out the door, he casually mentions that if they wish to bring him a gift upon their return, they have to bring him 2 very specific items, a paper-wrapped fire and a footless chicken. I mean, it's almost cruel, isn't it? He's intentionally overloading their mental capacity just to prove a point about their total lack of wit. As you might expect, the 2 women grab their bags, say their goodbyes, and head out. But the very moment they reach the city gates and are about to go their separate ways, the reality of these instructions finally hits them. How do they coordinate the travel days? How are they supposed to carry a fire in a paper bag? They have absolutely no idea. So what do? They just sit down on a large rock outside the city gates and break down in tears, completely paralyzed by despair. Enter our hero. As the 2 women are sitting there sobbing by the gates, a butcher named Wang happens to be walking by with his daughter, Fenggu. Fenggu hears their weeping, steps right up, and kindly asks them why they're so heartbroken. Through all their tears, the daughters-in-law explain their father-in-law's absolutely impossible demands. Fenggu just listens, processes the riddles, and gives a little smile. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between panic and actual problem-solving. Fenggu instantly cracks the mathematical riddle with some incredibly simple wordplay. She explains it to them. For the first daughter-in-law, 3 to 5 days doesn't mean a range, it means 3 times 5, which is 15. For the second daughter-in-law, 7 to 8 days means 7 plus 8, which is also 15. They literally just need to stay with their families for exactly 15 days, and boom, they can easily travel back together. Next up, she tackles the absurd physical gifts. A paper-wrapped fire sounds incredibly dangerous and totally impossible if you take it literally. But think about it. What is a common everyday item that safely holds a burning flame inside a paper exterior? A traditional paper lantern. By simply shifting from a literal interpretation to a practical one, she solves that first impossible object riddle in a matter of seconds.
Okay, now what about the footless chicken? This one actually relies on a really wonderful piece of cultural and linguistic context. You see, in Chinese cuisine, there's a very popular vegetarian dish called suji, which literally translates to vegetarian chicken. It's made entirely of rolled tofu, carefully layered and seasoned to mimic the exact texture of poultry. And since it's made of tofu, well, it obviously has no feet. The footless chicken was just a really clever dietary pun all along.
Armed with this totally newfound wisdom, the two daughters-in-law stop crying, thank Fenggu profusely, and head off to their respective homes. Fast forward exactly 15 days later. They walk through the gates of the Zhang household, side by side, proudly carrying traditional paper lanterns and a package of vegetarian tofu. Just imagine Zhang Gulao's absolute shock. The family members he thought were completely, utterly hopeless just perfectly executed an incredibly complex, multi-layered puzzle. Now, Zhang Gulao knows his family, right? He knows for a fact they didn't figure this out on their own. So he sits them down and immediately interrogates them. And the daughters-in-law don't even try to hide it. They just confess the whole story about this brilliant girl named Fenggu they met at the city gate. In that exact moment, a giant light bulb goes off in Zhang Gulao's head. Could this Fenggu be the sharp-witted savior he has been desperately searching for to marry his youngest son? Of course, Zhang Gulao isn't a man who takes things purely on hearsay. He's got to test Fenggu himself. So the very next morning, he travels over to the neighboring village to visit the Wang family butcher shop where Fenggu actually works. And as luck would have it, her father is out, and Fenggu steps right up to the counter to serve this elderly stranger. The stage is perfectly set for the ultimate test of wits. Zhang Gulao looks right at her and places literally the strangest meat order you could possibly imagine. He says, I want half a caddy of skin sticking to skin and half a caddy of skin beating skin. Now, obviously, this is not a standard butcher's request. It's a highly specific, incredibly weird anatomical riddle totally disguised as a grocery order. So I want you to step into Fenggu's shoes at the butcher shop for just a second. An old man walks in and asks you for skin sticking to skin and skin beating skin. What parts of a pig do you actually chop and wrap up for him? Think about the anatomy for a second. Think about the physical characteristics of the animal. If you get it wrong, you lose the respect of the brilliant Zhang Gulao. So what do you choose? Now, what's really interesting about Fenggu's answer here is her reaction. She doesn't even blink. She doesn't ask for clarification. She just smiles slightly, nods, and says, please wait a moment, it will be right up. She wraps up two distinct parcels, and when Zhang Gulao opens them, he is absolutely astonished. For skin sticking to skin, she gave him pig ears, where the skin is tightly folded right against itself. And for skin beating skin, she gave him a pig's tail, the exact part that constantly swishes and slaps against the pig's back. I mean, it is absolutely flawless logic. Zhang Gulao is overjoyed. Boom, he has finally found her. This young woman possesses exactly the kind of agile, out-of-the-box thinking his family so desperately needs. He immediately rushes home and sends a matchmaker to the Wang family to propose a marriage between Fenggu and his youngest son, Manar. And the Wang family, seeing that Manar is a genuinely honest and good-natured guy, happily agrees to the match. And the story wraps up beautifully. Once Fenggu joins the Zhang family, she takes over the management of the entire household. And just exactly as Zhang Gulao hoped, she handles everything flawlessly. She brings total order, intelligence, and peace to this previously chaotic, dim-witted family. Zhang Gulao finally gets to retire his worried mind, knowing his legacy and his family are in the hands of someone truly brilliant. They literally all live happily ever after. So, we've seen how just a bit of clever wordplay and anatomical logic completely saved an entire family's future. The truth is, the world is full of tricky demands, confusing requests, and seemingly impossible roadblocks, just like a paper-wrapped fire. So, my final question to you is this. The next time you are faced with your own impossible riddle, how are you going to use Fenggu's outside-the-box thinking to solve it? Are you going to sit and cry at the gates, or will you find the hidden math in the chaos? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep thinking brilliantly.